What's up? Welcome to John Box Watercolor. Today we're going to be doing a bit of a challenge video. I'm going to try to see if I can do a painting in 10 minutes or less. In today's day and age, most people are pretty busy and they might not have a full hour in their day to get everything out and work on a painting. This is just going to be a demonstration to see that you can do a lot of really good work with not much time. It's also in general just a good way to exercise and learn improvisation when you're painting. So before we get started, go ahead and smash that like button. It really helps the channel out and helps get this content out to more people. If you really like what you see, consider subscribing as well. So let's get painting. All right, and here is the sketch for our hopefully 10-minute painting. This is a scene from London. I'll put the reference photo over on the right so you can take a look. It's a really cool photo. It's backlit, which a lot of my paintings are. They tend to be a little bit simpler to do, and for a challenge like this, I want to keep it fairly simple. We've got this really cool sort of fountain statue figure here. I think that's really cool. I've added some people and an umbrella back here, and we're just going to try to have a good time with it. Again, the goal is going to be 10 minutes, and I'm going to start the timer when my brush touches the paper. I won't be keeping time when the paint is drying, obviously, because I'm not really painting or doing anything. And yeah, other than that, I think this is going to be fun. So I'm mixing together something warm. There's a warm sky in the picture, and I want to stick to that. I don't do a whole lot of warm stuff. I tend to do a lot of blues and cool colors, so I want to mix it up a little bit. All right, so without further ado, here we go. And I think what's great about doing a drill like this is it really makes you focus on what's important, right? You can get caught up in the details and sort of just get lost in trying to keep track of everything when really what matters are your large shapes, right? That's what's going to help you with your painting. That's what's going to help it read well to the viewer. All right, as I come down in here, and we'll do something like that. Let's see, maybe cool the ground off. And obviously I'm moving a little bit quicker than I normally do, so I won't be explaining as much, but again, you don't really have to explain too much with a demonstration like this. So we'll put our foreground in there. As always, I'm going to darken up the bottom a little bit. Kind of helps frame everything up. A little bit darker than that. Yeah, something like that. Okay, just like that, first wash is done. I'm going to stop my timer I've got here, and we're going to let this dry. We're going to come back, start our second wash. All right, we are back. First wash looks pretty good. I wish I would have darkened my ground up just a little bit. It's a little too light for what's going on here, but it's no big deal. I'm not worried about it. So again, I'll start my timer when the brush touches the paper. Things I'm going to be thinking about, I'm really just kind of trying to plan ahead here. Obviously, you want to paint around this umbrella so I can leave that behind as sort of a negatively painted object. Gonna add some water back here to kind of soften some things up. It's gonna be a pretty simple second wash because I may just throw a little paint on my figures here, but they're mainly gonna be in the third wash. And I'm gonna try to get really heavy with the paint there. So I think we're ready to get going. I'm going to, there we go. I'm gonna give it a quick spray. Let's start our timer and let's get going here. I'm going to start with this building. I've got to be a pretty good judge of if I'm too light or too dark, just because our time is a bit limited here. Again, I'm going to try to use a larger, not my largest mop brush, but I've got this smaller brush that I'll use for buildings sometimes, but in this case, I really need to try to get through it. Do that. Let's come down underneath and sort of cut it off there. Okay, that looks nice. And let's go for maybe a cooler, darker roof. Again, I can't spend too much time. It's a little bit darker. I think I would have liked that to be a little bit better, but that's okay. We've got these kind of little, I don't know if these are chimneys or towers or what they are, but I definitely need to include them. Let's get a little something here. Perfect. Okay, that looks nice. Let's work over on our other side. This is a bit further away, so I want to cool it down a touch. Just something like that. We'll leave a few areas of light there. And then I'll do the same sort of thing where I just darken the roof a little bit, just to add a bit of interest. And as I mentioned, I'm going to soften this back here. Just going to pull that down with a paper towel. Kind of let it dissolve off into the background. And just going to grab a little bit of darker paint to throw just around towards the bottom of everything that's going on. I'll throw a little bit of paint on my figures. And there we go. Stop our timer. And we're going to let this dry, and we're going to come back and start on our third wash. We're going to be focusing on, we've got this fountain statue tower here. We've got our figures, and we're going to throw in some shadows and things, and we'll be dry brushing in some detail as well. But so far, we're right around 5 minutes, so we're doing pretty good. Let's let it dry, and we'll be back. All right, just like that, we are back. Man, did our buildings dry light. Dried a lot lighter than I was expecting, but that's okay. You learn stuff when you do an exercise like this. I'm going to mix up a pretty thick wash here, or a thick bit of paint that I'm going to be using for my fountain structure here. And I'm going to go ahead and get a couple of brushes in my hand since I've got to be working a little bit quicker here. And I've also got my paints next to me because we're going to be using some paints right out of the tube for some of our figures just to help things kind of pop. All right, so start the timer. And let's get going here. I'm going to try to keep everything kind of as abstract as possible here. And even if I weren't in some sort of a time crunch here, I tend to do that in general. And if you've watched any of my other videos, I talk a lot about abstraction and why it is so important in painting. I'm leaving some gaps of light in there, but I want to make sure I got a good solid base there. Okay. Let's start to build this up here. Now we've got the shape up here. I believe this is Leicester or Leicester Square. And I wasn't quite sure what this was in the photograph. I should have done maybe a little background homework. It looked like a bird or an angel or something. Comment below if you know what that is. All right. So that looks good. Let's start working on our figures here. I'm going to throw in a couple of kind of abstract areas. I'm going to grab my kind of my rattier brush. I tend to mash this into the paper, so I like to use this for figures. I can really kind of throw a little expression in there. Let's pick up some neutral tint. Do something like that. Let's grab a bit of lavender there. Wow, that was no lavender at all. Let's try that again. Nope, turned out kind of gray. We're going to grab that out of the tube for these front figures here. Let's just do, I'm just going to throw some paint here. And then we're going to grab paint out of the tubes for those folks. Okay. again, abstracting a couple of areas in. And while I've got this warm area, just checking my watch, I want to go ahead and dry brush in some details on our building. Now, normally I would have done a lot of this work while the building was still wet, but since I'm moving quickly, I kind of made the decision to say, hey, we'll deal with that later on. And so I'm going to let my dry brush do the work for me. I can't get hung up too much. That's really the best thing about this exercise is it really makes you focus on what's important. What is important to your subject? What is going to make this painting read well to your audience? And, it's probably not going to be windows, right? And that's kind of where we tend to get caught up. I'm just going to throw a couple of perspective lines there. I'm going to work on my smaller figures here in the background. We'll add a face there, face there. Again, the key here is to really get abstract with it. All right, let's go into our bag of paints here. What do I want to use? I want something a little bit bolder for our front figures. I'll pull out some white. Let's do my favorite lavender. Maybe I'll just pull out some yellow ochre. Maybe I'll find a spot for that. All right, I got to speed it up here. Running a little bit out of time. Let's grab some lavender. Let's throw it on that front figure there. Throw some back there. Okay, let's darken it up. Let's give him a jacket. Something like that. We'll throw in a face. We'll throw in a face there. And it is kind of a sundown sort of time, so I'm okay with keeping these figures a little bit darker than I normally would. I like to have one or two that are just a bit lighter there. Let's add in the lower half, some legs. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm about to run out of time here, but that's okay. We're going to keep pushing through, and we'll see how much time we go over on. So far, I'm liking the painting. It's coming together. It just takes a little bit of time when you get into these figures. If you want to give them a personality, it just depends. All right, let's see. Where are we on time? We just crossed over. Let's keep working here. All right, let's keep working. I'm going to throw in a vertical line back there, maybe one over there. I'll throw in a couple of dark details on our fountain there. I'm just trying to squint to see if there's anywhere else. I kind of want to darken up that line there. Maybe those are too dark. See, I talk about this in my other video when I talk about adding depth. You need to have things that are further away. You got to have your windows and details a little bit lighter. All right, I'm going to grab one more thing of paint here, and I am a little bit disappointed here. I'm over time. I thought for sure I would be able to hit that 10-minute mark, but let's keep watching. We'll see how far we get along here. I'm going to throw a little Chinese white there. Again, just using this to kind of create figures just out of thin air. I just kind of throw a little blob down, and just like that, we've got a figure right there. Throw a face on them. A little hair. Maybe Some sunglasses? I tried to throw some sunglasses on this guy. Maybe. Might be a bit... Okay, let's let this dry and we're going to come back and add our final details. All right, let's finish this painting up. Something I realized that I had forgotten to do. So I need to throw a few shadows for our folks here. Now it is kind of it's a setting sun kind of scene, so I just want to throw just a little something here. It kind of just helps cement them to the ground. Just a little something there. Maybe. I wanted to create a shadow maybe for that statue there, but we're just going to leave that alone. Okay. So a little bit more of a jacket there. All right, let's add our gouache, and we're going to be done with this painting. As always, this is white titanium. And for a scene like this where there's a lot of dark going on, it really helps just cut everything out. I mean, it's the best part of finishing up a painting like this is using all that. Oops, that's a bit too much there. That's okay. I'm going to go over that with some darker paint. Okay. You know what? I'll give him a little bit of a light shirt there up front. Kind of matches his buddy. One thing, I want to fix that fountain there. I got a little bit. Wasn't quite what I was going for, but that's okay. Okay, so we're finished up and we're around 15 minutes. So a lot longer than I was expecting. I'm pretty surprised by that, but still 15 minutes is, I think, a lot shorter time than many of you were expecting that you could do. It's a decent painting, and I had fun doing it as well. This is a perfect opportunity for you to get better at not caring about the details and just getting in there, getting your brush on the paper and expressing yourself. I mean, after all, that's what art's all about. So let's sign this and we'll kind of review it, talk about what I like, what I don't like, and we'll be done here. Right off the bat, I mean, I will say I do like this painting. I think it's almost, I mean, it is a bit simpler. There's less going on here. I mean, there are things that I would do differently, but it's not that bad compared to what I normally do, which is surprising because most of my paintings take, closer to half an hour to do, and this is done in about half that time. And it has achieved a similar result. I do wish, let's do that. There's a little bit too much empty foreground up here. I would have liked to change that. Again, giving more time. I would have liked to darken this roof a lot more and had it kind of bleed down into the building. Just give it a more contrast, more dramatic appearance. I think our sky looks great. I also would have spent a lot more time on the figures and kind of varying their colors. They all look a little bit similar. That's always a weak point of mine. And so when I have to work fast like this, it's gonna show through. I tend to not give as much attention to sort of individualizing my characters in a scene and making them all unique. And so that's just something I've got to work on. But again, overall, this is a perfectly fine painting. No issues with it whatsoever. So if you stuck with me to the end, I really appreciate it. I hope you learned something. And if you haven't, consider subscribing. And yeah, remember to keep on painting. Thanks.